Welcome to the 9/8 Central podcast, where we talk about growing a business, working in media, and building a team that we love. I'm Jen Blair, COO here at 9/8 Central, and I'm with David Stapp, our post-production director. Welcome to the show, David.
Hello. Thank you.
Awesome. So today we are going to be talking about how to pull off humor in video, right?
Yeah.
So people love humor, and especially in advertising and on social media. And it tends to be the thing that, when you think about going viral, that's what gets you there. That's what makes it happen. But it's really hard to pull off when you're trying to do it.
Yeah. And it's funny, over the years, it seems like that's become more of the focus for a lot of brands and their advertising and stuff. Now it's a really rare thing, especially think of Super Bowl time. How it's a super rare thing that people go anywhere but comedy.
Well, yeah, it's either comedy or it's super sappy, and I am not there for that. I am there to watch the funny ads.
Yeah.
That's why I am tuning into the Super Bowl. But so what are the 3 things that you think we need to pull off a funny video? Because it's not easy to do. It's not people think they can do it, but then things just kind of go awry or a miss, and it just doesn't execute. So what are things that you need to make it happen?
I think, if you're looking at okay, I want to execute a video that is funny, you want people to think it's actually funny and they get engaged. And then at the end, you obviously want them to look at your brand and associate it with comedy. Oh, I like this brand. Oh, they're funny. I want to look more into them. So you need a good script. Kind of the first starting point is where you're writing, you're creating the story and the direction of the whole ad. Then your talent, your actor, your actress, or whoever you have in your spot needs to know comedy, needs to have timing down, needs to have even physical comedy, body language. And then there's the post-production aspect of editing, because not a lot of people think about it, but you can have the world's greatest comedy actor and you can have the best script in the world, but if the editing isn't right, it can all fall flat.
Just kill the spot.
It can literally kill it.
Yeah. So for scripting, let's start there, because that's kind of where every production starts, right?
Yep.
It's the script, and that just guides you through. So I write the scripts here at 9/8 Central. That's just something I've been doing for, most of my career at this point. But for me, clearly you want to start at a place where the brand is going to get the goal that they're going for. In advertising, you have one thing to do, and you're trying to sell a product or a service or something. And so you can't ever lose sight of that. And when you're writing the script, you always have to keep that in mind. But for me, so much of it is thinking through, okay, well, what do I want people to know and how do I want them to get there? But so much of it for me is kind of the nuance in the words and what's being said. And I think that, you want to always write like people talk. But you want to be aware of kind of the cultural shift that's happening. What are the struggles that people are having? And just kind of throw in some sort of unconventional phrasing, still conversational. But I think that the more you kind of I don't know, I'm really into scripts that just kind of twist words around in ways that you don't necessarily always hear them, but still feel very conversational and relatable. And I feel if you can execute that, then you can make anything funny. And I'm thinking, even in terms, and not even just in dialogue, but also just in terms of the action. And I'm thinking in terms of you're going to laugh at me, but the Ryan Reynolds Match.com ad.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
My man. They do great things. But
shout out to Ryan Reynolds. If you'd like to sponsor this podcast, feel free.
Yes. Reach out. We're here. But, that was such a great example of kind of pulling on all these weird little cultural norms at the time. The world was a shambles at that point. And for instance, the dumpster fire that they're taking selfies in front of, that was a thing that was just happening. And everybody in memes and on Twitter and whatever else were just talking about the dumpster fire of a year. And here comes, Ryan Reynolds and his ad agency just pulling that into their script. And so I think just kind of having an awareness of what is hammering at people and how you can get into their subconscious and just pull it off in a way that just feels a little unconventional.
And beating others to the punch, too.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a race.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. What else for scripting?
And it's funny, you were talking about, being very intentional. And sometimes you'll see companies today they throw that out the window and they're just we're just going to make something as funny as possible and then throw our logo at the end. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that feels really lazy. And yes, it might be really, really funny. I mean, you think about some of the biggest names in like comedic advertising right now are like the insurance companies
Yes.
and
Oh,
food companies.
yes.
I mean, literally all the insurance companies, all of them are doing it.
Yes.
They're just hammering on comedy right now. And sometimes they're just going so far where it's just, they're just focused on being funny. And they're like, oh yeah, and we're the people who made this. Here's our logo. Give us a call.
Yeah, they just want you to associate that name. But
Yeah.
I will say, and that's kind of going back to the weird unconventional stuff, one of my favorite insurance commercials right now are I think it's Geico, but it's like, oh, we have an ant problem. And there's just like all these ants, like
Yes.
literally like somebody's mother's sister running around the
AUNT.
house. Yes.
Yep.
And like there's an animal in the basement and it's the Muppet playing the drums. And
Yep.
like I love that and I think it's effective.
Yeah.
And
No, it is.
But do I remember the brand? I think it's Geico. I don't know. So maybe it's not effective. I don't know. But I think it's funny.
Exactly. So it's really interesting, and even if it is, if I think it's lazy, it still worked because then
Yeah.
I'm still remembering it and I'm still associating with that brand.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny, sometimes when you're writing something, you have to still step back and ask, okay, could they watch this? What could they tell me about my business by watching this?
Yep.
What on earth, other than my name, like what could they tell me anything about it?
Yeah.
Could they know what do they do? I don't know.
Yeah. And then on that note too, that's one that we've been talking about in the office is the old Dollar Shave Club commercial from years ago.
Yep.
And you do know exactly what they do. I mean, clearly they have a very descriptive name, but he hammers home the point through the whole thing
Yep.
that we ship you cheap razors like right to your door. You
Yeah.
know what they do at the end of it.
Yep. Yeah. So it's funny to me how some people just throw it out the door and they prioritize comedy over content and like actually it's very strange to me because like that's the whole point of an ad.
Yeah.
Is for people to know who you are and what you
What
do.
you're selling.
And why they should come to you. Why should they even like give you their time? So I don't know. That's just really weird, and it's just this strange like balance today.
Yeah.
And how like comedy has evolved and literally just taken over advertising. I feel like probably 80% of commercials now it's funny.
Yeah.
That's the goal is to be funny. So, but it works.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So you got your script.
Yep.
Okay. It's perfect. It tells your audience what you do, what you sell, why they should care. So then you need your talent to execute it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that to me too is one of the best things ever. When you have a good actor with comedic timing, like I know that there's certain people who never want their people to go off script, but when they do, and if they riff a little bit, like having the right talent in those moments is like everything.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Especially because improv skills are like gold. If you can find someone who's like really good at improvising or just like you can tell like they get your concept. Because sometimes if people don't have their acting chops in comedy, they might need a little more guidance and a little more direction. But if you can find that person who's like, oh, I know exactly what you're going for.
Yeah.
I get the exact vibe. We're going to do it this way. And then they can just kind of take it and make it their own and run with it. That's pretty invaluable because that's going to save you time on set. Like
Yeah.
a lot of time. And,
Yeah.
and we have our kind of go-to people. We know, if we need something funny, let's give this
Yeah.
person a call or give that person a call. Because like we know we're gonna have to
gonna
barely
kill
give
it.
any direction.
Yeah, they're just
like,
gonna kill
literally.
it.
And that's kind of the goal with just actors in general for any kind of spot.
Yeah.
You want to know like what are their strengths, what can they do well, and like have you worked with them before? Do you have a good like relationship with them to where the ultimate goal with an actor and a director is to get to where you barely have to say anything.
They
It's
just feel
like
it.
you guys know you're on the same page and you can just kill it. And that ultimately saves time, it saves money, and it's just going to make the client happier. So,
Yeah.
and that's a pretty tricky thing. That's why you see a lot of like director and actor relationships.
Yes.
And actress relationships.
They recur.
They just keep working together.
Yeah.
It's because they work together well and they know each other and they're just like, oh yeah, I know what you want.
Yeah,
I
and
know
they just
exactly
give it
what
to
you're
you.
looking for. And
Yeah.
they speak each other's same language. So
love
that's
that.
why it happens.
Yeah. My gosh, what was I going to say about that?
Comedy.
Comedy. I know. This is such a heavy topic. But yeah, that was the thing. In the script, taking it back to the script, one of the things when I'm writing too, I don't like to give, if I know I'm going to have a good actor, I don't like to give too much direction in the script. I like to give just enough. And again, use kind of like unconventional, maybe quirky words so they kind of get, like, I think that if you put the feeling in the words of the script and in the
Yeah.
direction, then they can kind of like just osmose the emotion that you want them to portray on camera. And so that's why I love to spend the time like in between the dialogue too. It's just really trying to like get the actor to understand, oh, this is where I'm going. This is where I need to be. This is how kooky or, you know, how I need to play this part. But,
and I'm sure you've done this probably thousands of times, but think of how many times you wrote a script with a certain person in mind.
yes.
And like you're literally writing, okay, I can see them doing it this way.
Yes.
So, and that kind of influences you. And I think a lot of people, even when they're like writing screenplays, like say you're getting into like, you're trying to like write a feature film screenplay, some people will write parts for actors they've seen in movies. Like, oh, Morgan Freeman, he would be great for this. And he would talk like
I was going to
this.
say with his voice.
And you start to like think about how they talk, their mannerisms, and you've never worked with them, but you just know them because you've seen them in like tons of movies.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's a pretty good thing to kind of go off of because that's going to just influence like when you get on set.
Yeah. And then on that note too, I think one of the unexpected costs of production a lot of time is talent. And people don't anticipate how much that can cost. But if you're going for comedy, then it's worth it to put the investment there. Like find other ways to cut back, like pay your actor, pay your talent, because that's going to be the thing that really makes or breaks or brings that script to life. So yeah.
Pay your talent, folks.
Yes.
Pay your talent.
Tip your waitress and pay your talent.
Yeah.
Okay, so the third thing, editing, which is really your wheelhouse.
Yeah. I've done it a couple
Best
times.
post-production director in Greenville. Yes.
Yes.
So, okay, I want to say we did a spot for a client not too long ago and wrote the script. We went and shot it, handed it off to David. And when he showed me the rough cut, I literally almost cried because it was exactly what I was picturing in my brain. And it was the best. Just moved so well. So yeah, like talk a little bit about how you make it work.
Yeah. And it's funny because like when y'all gave me that specific video, it was very clear to me. I was like, okay, I know exactly what they're going for and like the style and the pacing and just all of that to help the joke really land. So that's kind of the tricky thing about editing is you really have to be aware of like different genres and how to use different things at your disposal for different genres, whether it's music or sound effects or the pacing. And comedy, they always say, is all about timing. Mm-hmm. And so that's a really interesting thing about comedy is like, okay, do I let this shot sit here for a little bit longer than usual? Mm-hmm. Like, do I let this kind of like become awkward, or do I just cut it off really quickly and like immediately cut away? Does that make it funnier? And so there's different ways to play with different scenes, and you have to really just kind of be aware, okay, what's happening? What are the characters doing? What's coming up after this? Because everything's always moving in a very linear fashion. So you always have to be aware of where you are, but where you're going at the same time. So that's kind of the thing I like the most about comedy. You kind of like, you have a lot of things at your disposal, especially with sound effects and music for that matter, because all of a sudden, if you introduce some new music that's meant to convey something, like all of a sudden, like it's been really quiet, and then all of a sudden you use music to introduce a new kind of comedic element, a new joke of some kind. It's funny how people don't really always think about like comedy can happen in the edit. Sometimes you can find a way to add some comedy that wasn't even intended in the edit. Something I was talking to y'all about a long time ago. It's one of my favorite comedic moments in editing. It's a really stupid movie. I want to first preface with that, but it's a really great, if you're into stupid humor.
We love stupid humor.
It's a great movie. It's called UHF. And it stars Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh.
It's a pretty unknown movie, I feel like. Well, yes. It's a pretty unknown movie, but it's called UHF. And it's a spoof movie. It's a parody movie. It parodies a lot of movies from like the 80s and stuff like that. And there's a moment when Weird Al Yankovic walks into an office, and it's like the bad guy in the movie, and everyone's like really afraid of him. And he walks in, and the bad guy's name is RJ. And so Weird Al Yankovic just walks into this really bustling, busy like newsroom. There are hundreds of people in here. They're all running around. It's really loud. You hear typewriters. You hear phones going off, phones ringing off the hook. And Weird Al walks in. He sees him and says, "Hey, RJ." Everyone in the room stops and looks at Weird Al. Like everyone looks at him and just stops talking. And even the phone stops ringing. And all that was just a sound effect stopped ringing. And they all just look at him, and it's just awkward silence. And so it didn't click, because I watched this when I was little, but it didn't click with me until later. The editor made a choice to just cut all the sound off like including the phone ringing,
Yeah.
all of like the copiers and all the sounds you were hearing in the
ambient
office,
noise,
just
yeah.
cut it all out, and it just made it that much funnier.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to me that, you know, comedy can happen not just in a script, not just with your talent and on set, but it can also happen in the edit. You
Yeah.
have a lot of control, and that's kind of the job of an editor. Editors, I say it all the time, are just magicians
Yeah.
with sleight of hand
Yeah.
and manipulation. That's all it is.
Well, but here's the thing though too, and this is something like when you work in this industry and you learn it after a while, you start to see film, video completely different than
Yeah.
like as a casual observer. Like you can't watch it the same way anymore. So for you to like be able to consciously separate what's
Yep.
happening in the sound and like noticing that all the ambient sound is gone, like that's like you don't always notice that as just a
Don't.
casual viewer. And so you
Yeah.
have to like, it just clicks in your brain and it's a different way of looking at things.
yeah, and especially once you get in this industry, you look at things in such a different way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a thing too, is like when you're an editor, or when you're a cinematographer, or you're a writer, you know, you always are, when you're looking at media, you're always looking at it in a different way. And you're also like
Yeah.
analyzing it and kind of absorbing like, oh, I like how they did that. Or,
Yeah.
I like, that's really cool how they went this direction, because this is the typical direction people go with this. And so
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of like lock it away in your brain and you kind of save it for later. Like, oh, I want to try that.
Yes.
And that's just how you learn.
Yeah.
It's all about adapting, and, you know, what is it? They say is flattery, best form of flattery.
Oh, is imitation?
Imitation
Yes,
is
that's
the
the
best
thing.
form of
Mhm.
flattery. That's it. That's a phrase.
It is. And well, then my favorite is good artist create, great artist steal.
Steal.
Yes,
Yes.
that's my
Great
favorite.
artist steal.
Use that a lot. But yeah, no. So, okay. So takeaways. What did we learn? How do we execute comedy? You need
Yep.
a great script that helps an actor understand what it is they need to be showing to the camera, and a script that does what you're intending to do as a company. It's
Yeah.
selling
What do
something
you want them
forward.
to take away?
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Then talent.
Talent, yeah, you definitely need to have somebody in mind, you know, who has, you know, comedic chops, you know, has like that under their belt, because that's going to save you a lot of time on set. Like if you're getting somebody who all they've done is just Shakespeare in theater, it's like, okay, maybe not.
They might
that
not make you
person.
laugh.
Yeah, they might not get, you know, because you want them to be able to read the script and they get it. You know, you
Yeah.
should not have to over-explain,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a concept. You should be able to tell them once, they get it, and you just go for it. Especially people who have, you know, improv skills. Improvisational skills are
Key.
gold. They're key to
Yeah.
comedy for sure. Yep.
And then post production, find an
Yeah.
editor like David Stapp who will just make it work.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a good
But yeah, I mean, definitely, it's kind of like talent. It's you need someone who has that exposure, and not to say they couldn't learn it, but you know, they definitely need to be aware. And again, it goes back to the analyzing thing. As you're looking at, you know, think about when you're watching a comedy in a theater, you know, a movie on TV or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, are you thinking about, you know, why did that make me laugh? What did they do that made me laugh? Was it the actor, like, oh, he fell down some stairs, that was funny? Or was it like a sound effect? Or, you know, be aware and really kind of analyze things and know, how did it make me laugh? How could I emulate that? Because editors are all about, you know, editing emotion, literally. Editing emotion manipulating emotion.
Yeah.
That's a big part of editing. So you just got to be aware, and you've got to kind of like save those things, like I said, in your tool belt, you know, like, oh, I could use this kind of cut or this kind of transition or this kind of sound effect, you know, having all of that in your disposal, you know, at your disposal for, you know, when the time is right. It's kind of just have your toolbox ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So before we wrap up,
Yeah.
what are you digging this week? What is anything that you have been doing this week that you're super into?
I'm super. Okay. So
Yeah.
this week, something I've been getting really super into is an animation engine called Unreal Engine.
Yep.
This is a big thing I've been talking about around the office, especially as certain things are on the
Certain
horizon
things.
for 98 Central. But Unreal Engine is basically an animation engine used for video games.
Yep.
But it has been a really big disruptor in the VFX, like film industry.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're using it to create backgrounds on LED walls, like you see like on the show The Mandalorian.
Yep.
So I've been really getting into a deep dive on that technology, that animation software, and just what the capabilities mean for our industry and like how we as a business could use it for our clients. 'Cause it can span a lot of different things, and it's basically finding like, okay, well, how does it fit into our wheelhouse? And
Yeah.
it's really exciting.
Yeah.
So I've been loving it.
Yeah. No, I can't wait to see where you go with that. I think it's just going to be really exciting stuff for 9-8. But
What about you?
For me, I've been really into Wordle, which if you have not heard of Wordle, you're living under a rock. I'm sorry. Just, go Google it, go play the game. And it's like a thing where you just have to guess a word in 6 tries. It's a 5-letter word. I think it's spreading faster than COVID.
It's very, very addicting.
Yeah, it is. Give it a try. But anyway, so this was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really cool to talk about these kinds of things. So for everybody out there, if you are interested in making a video that will make people laugh, or if you need some help doing it, then we can't wait to talk to you. We would love for you to reach out. Give us a shout at 98c.org. Or you can even follow us on social media. On Instagram or 98C. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the things. We'll link it down in our show notes. So come and check us out, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, guys.
Okay. We're going to do this, guys. It's going to be great.
Gonna do it. Woo!